So this is module 4, Inter-VLAN Routing, because in the previous VLAN, what we're doing just to create groups, create logical groups on a switch. So far, our two switches, they do have two groups, and in format of extension. I don't want you to count them as, if you're asked maybe how many available VLANs are you like, there are 4. Because if you have a switch, you have two switches connected together, and you're not going to say that you have two networks. It's one, isn't it? It's one but extended. So it's one network, but of big, as I always make, hypot density from 24 then to 48. Now that we have these so that are independent, we have this on the other side, and then the other communicate together. So the VLANs that we have, VLAN 10, VLAN 20, those VLANs or those computers, they will never communicate to each other. But the 20 here on switch 1, it can communicate with 20 on the same network, or it's the same group. And even as the instruction that I gave you, it has to be a continuation. But if it's 10.1, 10.2, in this VLAN 10 here, then on the other switch, it's going to be to repeat. The moment you repeat, then that is going to be a duplication of IP address, and you will see it. In terms of, they will actually show you if there is a duplication, IP duplication of the network. So here, what you're going to do to actually do to configure what you call inter-VLAN routing, so that you are able to cross from VLAN 10 to VLAN 20. From VLAN 10 to VLAN 20. Let me show you this first. That if I have two switches here separate, I have computers here, I have computers this side. Maybe this is 192.168.1.0. This is 192.168.2.0. These are two different networks, isn't it? Even if maybe you've not even seen the IP address, now that they are not connected together, these are totally different networks. Okay? So there is no way these two networks will ever communicate. Still the same thing. Let's assume that this is our one switch. That the two networks belongs to, they are on the same switch. Still they will never communicate. Why? They belong to different logical networks. Okay? So let's assume that we don't have this. So all we need and for the two to communicate, for the two computers to communicate, we need a router in between. Okay? To connect to this network and then this. Because the router, its main function is to route packets from one network to another network. Now that it is in place, well configured, then it means that it will be able to forward traffic packets from this network to this network. That is when you have separate switches. These are separate switches. So in scenario where we have VLANs, it's one switch with VLANs. You see there is a gap in between. These, they will never communicate together. So still, if they are to communicate together, we need a router. See, we need a router. There are times when I explained that in case, let's say, a port belongs to a specific VLAN, then it serves that VLAN. You remember? Huh? Remember this explanation here, that if a port 1, even port 1 here, maybe it belongs to VLAN 10, it is there to serve VLAN 10. If you have another link, maybe 10, then 10, and it belongs to VLAN maybe 20, it serves VLAN 20. Okay? So in scenario where we have the VLANs, this and then this, we can use what we call legacy inter-VLAN routing, whereby you need a separate link for each VLAN. Eh? These are two VLANs. So you need a link. This is one switch. It's no longer two separate switches like what we had in the first place. So you need a port. Let's assume that this is port 1, this is port 5. So you need a port here to connect to the router, and then this connects to the router. But this is a single switch. So you have two cables from router connecting to the switch. It's a legacy. You have each VLAN, it is separate from the other one. So you need separate links. See? It's a legacy. Something that is legacy, that right now it is not supported. Eh? Okay? It's not supported. It's not actually reliable. Meaning that if you have to go with this method or mode or mechanism, you need, for example, let's assume that you have maybe 5 VLANs. So you need the router that has 5 ports to connect to that same switch. Okay. Now we have another method. Oh, they are here. So this is legacy inter-VLAN routing. That is it. And I'm going to show you. Then we have what you call route on a stick. You have your router. This is our switch with 2 VLANs. Using 2 VLANs because that is what we have in our packet tracer. That these computers here, they belong to 10 here. This is 20. Yes, 20. And our range on this one here, it was actually 5 to 10. And then here it was 11 to 15. So here we need a trunk link. Okay? We need a trunk link. In legacy, you'd actually select here any port that belongs to this 10, connect it. You connect it here on the router in this range and even in this range. That is your legacy. But since we are dealing with route on a stick, all we need is just one port, maybe connected to which port? Maybe port 1. And then you trunk that port. Because now port 1, it is in default VLAN. So it is there to serve VLAN 1. So you just connect to it and then you trunk it. The moment you trunk it, it's going to disappear from all these lists. See? Because we have list VLAN 10, VLAN 1, and then VLAN 20. It will disappear, meaning that it is there to serve all the active VLANs. See? That is what we call router on a stick. And this one here, it will serve all the available VLANs that you have. Whether you have 20 VLANs on a switch, it will serve them. As long as you configure very well the interface, it will manage or serve them. Then we have, lastly, layer 3 switch, using switch to virtual interfaces. Now with this one here, we need a layer 3 switch. The layer 3 switch, I will show you how it looks like. Now this one here, it serves at 2 layers. It can serve at layer 2, at the same time it can serve at layer 3, meaning that it can actually offer the same functions as the router. Okay? So on this, we don't need 2 devices, router and then the switch. You can have actually this switch of yours, create the VLANs, and then once you're done, you create the switch virtual interfaces for each VLAN, and then that is the switch, that is the interface that is going to be to serve the PCs that are connected. So I'll show it to you practically, but of course I don't think today. So look at this. This is our legacy. I hope you're seeing this. That this port 1 here, it belongs to VLAN 10. Belongs to VLAN 10. Then we have this other side. It's VLAN 20. So in case, let's say we had the third, still you would need another third interface here that connects to VLAN 30. Okay, maybe the 40 again. Still you need another interface that connects there. Okay? So where will you get that router that has so all the ports? So router on a stick, still you will have to read through this, sit down, read through this, because it's still the same same concept as on the VLAN. So with this router on a stick, we need sub-interfaces. You have your router here connecting to a switch that has maybe 2 VLANs, meaning that this interface here, you have to logically divide it logically. So you have your port first Ethernet maybe 0, 0, but you are going to divide it logically. You call an interface maybe first Ethernet 0, 0, then you give it an ID maybe 1 or maybe 10. You have created a sub-interface, and this sub-interface is the one that is going to serve VLAN 10. So by looking physically, you just see a single interface, this. But within that single interface here, it's where we're going to create as many as the logical interfaces. You won't with your naked eyes like this that the sub-interface. No, you won't. And then you can create another sub-interface, maybe interface first Ethernet 00, maybe 20, to serve now this interface, this VLAN. Okay. So the VLAN and then the sub-interfaces, they will be logical. Logical, you can't see them, but they will be there. They will be there. So you need to read through this statement there. Then we have the third one, which is inter-VLAN routing. Inter-VLAN routing on a layer 3 switch. As you can see, this is our switch, a layer 3 switch. So all we need, you first create the VLANs. We have 10, then 20. After that, you create the sub-interface. They are here. Interface, VLAN 10. Interface, VLAN 20. You give them the IP addresses from those specific VLANs. Okay. So let's assume that this side is 192.168.10.0, and then this side is 192.168.20.0. So as you're assigning this interface VLAN 10, pick an IP address from this VLAN, assign it there. Still do the same. Interface VLAN, this, pick an IP address from this, you assign it here. Okay? That is after you've created the VLAN. See? Okay? So the following are advantages of using layer 3 switch. So one, they are much faster than route on a stick because everything is hardware switched and routed. So on multi-layer, it's just a switch connecting the end devices. And that they will be able to close there and then. We don't need a router because we are using the layer 3 switch. But route on a stick, it needs the layer 2 device, whereby frames sent to the router, consider that distance to the router and then comes back to the switch. That's the reason why they say it's much faster, it's better, it's faster. So there is no need for external links because in this, the router, you need a router connecting to a switch and then you need extra cables. But in multi-layer switch, you only need the cables that connect to end devices only. They are not limited to one link. They are not limited to one link because layer two ether channel can be used as this. So in the scenario where you have multi-layer, like what you have here, you see this, you can actually combine this link with this. In fact, it's one of the chapters that we're going to cover. And then you group the two. If this is maybe gigabit Ethernet and you've combined the two, then it means that the speed there is going to be 2 GB or 2000 MB per second. You see that you will have increased the speed, the performance. It is supported here. Of which I don't want to go in details because there is a separate chapter about ether channel. Latency is much lower. The latency is much lower because we don't expect so many cables on the network. They are more commonly deployed in campus LAN than the routers. So with layer 3, it's on the campus where we expect so many devices. So on network like this one here, we don't expect more routers. Get it? More routers. So if you have to use layer 2 and you have VLANs, then expect to use at every rack it has to have the router. Every rack to have the router to interlink to those. But if you have layer 3, then it means that it's the switch that you are using, and at the same time it will serve as the router, and it keeps on looping from VLAN 1, then the other VLAN. The only advantage is that, disadvantage is that layer 3 switch are more expensive. You cannot run the entire, this whole network here, the whole building with layer 3, it's going to be costly. Route on a stick, routing, the configurations are here. Most of the time I'll love you people to read on your own. Just read through this. Me, I'm going back to, let me just go back to the configurations. Go back to the configuration. So here, remember, I gave you the assignment to work on this, but I'm going to end up doing it. But still, I will not do this other side. This other side, it's you to do it and prove. So on this, I'll just first open my computer, assign it with the address, desktop with the address, which is 192 168.1 dot. You see the message now that you're going to be encountering. You have a 10 on the other side, and then you end up using the 1. But there is no problem as long as you're able to go back and you identify the problem. And actually, if you have any problem and you go back and troubleshoot the problem, then you're good to go. I expect that. Then we have a .1, the subnet mask. I'll use a default gateway to save time. Now, the default gateway will be the IP address that I'm going to use at the router, okay, to save time. Anyway, let me just stop here and then start with the router, because that one is going to give us the clear flow. So I need the router. I'll connect 1941 and put it in any direction, either here or this side. Let me just put it here and then connect this. I need that 0. and gigabit Ethernet 00, and then on any port, let me use 1. I say that. So the reason why it's blinking red, the port and the router is down. Eh? So I will access this. Then use go. Okay.
The individual port.
Sorry?
The individual port for that router is down.
Yes.
Is it because the router is...
The ports on the router are always disabled. It's you to enable it. Eh? That's the reason why it's down. Eh? So it's enable, then configure terminal. My port is interface G00, isn't it? So from there, you activate it, no shutdown. Eh? Now my port is up. See that? Remember, we're going to use router on a stick. I can't try out the legacy method. I can't. That one, in your free time, you try it out and see whether you get it. But you will not use it anywhere. So now my interface is up. Make sure that the interface is up. Once it's up, then you exit. Call that interface again. I need interface. I need sub-interface. Interface G0/0. Give it an extension. We need a sub-interface, the logical interface. Eh? So I'll give it an extension. Maybe, okay, let me use 10. Make my work look uniform, be uniform. I'll use 10. Eh? So I've created a sub-interface. In the first place, we had only 2 interfaces, gigabit Ethernet 00 and then 01. Eh? Now that I've created this, if we go and check, you'll find gigabit Ethernet 00, then under it with 0/0.10. It's a sub, it's a logical interface that you will not use your eyes there and this to look for that port on the device. But if you're to look for that, the ports, you'll be able to see the 2, 00 and then 01. No? So after that, now that this one here, we have assimilated the interface. Eh? We need to, we have assimilated the interface, and that interface, it's within the physical, okay? Within the physical. On a switch, for different VLANs to share a link, that link, it has to be trunked, okay? So even here, we're going to trunk our port on the side of the switch, but when it comes to the router, we need to state which traffic, which VLAN should use that sub-interface. We are creating sub-interfaces, but each sub-interface that we create, you need the VLAN to use that sub-interface, okay? We are creating sub-interface and we've managed to create it, but which VLAN should use that sub-interface? Is it VLAN 10 or it's VLAN 20? So it's what we are going to. So you first state that, and then you will be allowed to assign the IP address to that sub-interface. So the command is encapsulation dot 1Q. It's not clear, but you're going to get that. Dot 1Q. Now at this step, you can set the VLAN to, or you can attach a VLAN to use that sub-interface. You see, we started with sub-interface as what? 10. That one, it's an ID. Okay? It's an ID. And we would have even used dot 1, and it was going to work. And then when you reach here, you specify the exact. Now, the other side, we've used the 10. I can put 20. But if I put 20, then it means that that sub-interface, it serves VLAN 20. How do you get? So at this step here, at this stage, we are trying to specify which VLAN should use the sub-interface. So I'll put 10, so that my work look uniform. You see that? And then after that, you can go for address, IP address, and then the address it's 192.168.1, then dot 10.
10.1.
I'll not use the one because already we've physically assigned them the other side. So I'll use any. Let me just put 10, 10.10. And then you put the subnet mask 255.255.255.0. Okay? You press enter. How many statements so far? We activated our interface, we created a sub interface, we attached a specific VLAN, and then the address. So 4 statements, see? And of which the first statement you are not going to repeat it. You've done that, that is it. Now what you're going to keep repeating, the creating sub interface, encapsulate it, assigning which VLAN to use, and then the address. 3 statements. Now that we are done here, I'm going to manipulate what I have here because of time. So this is interface gigabit Ethernet 0010. So I'll give it 20 to create the second sub interface. Then I need to attach a specific VLAN to use this sub interface, which is encapsulation.1q, then 20. And then after that, the IP address. This time the IP address I will maintain, but this time it will be 20.10. Say that, you press enter. We are done with the route on a stick. So if we go back now, we create the IP. We assign the IP address, the IP addresses. Then it will we will be able to communicate. So this is what I'm going to do here because of time. For the interest of time, let me just automate this. Now that it's on record, you will not complain. But still, we have a chapter on what we call DHCP, and my assignment still exists. It is still standing. You have to do it manually. You assign IP address, but me, I'm not going to go to assign the IP addresses manually the other side. So I will exit here and then go to global configuration mode, IP. I will say IP DHCP. Let me exclude from what to what. Okay, let me exclude one IP address, which is 192.168. Oh, it's a 1. I'll exclude 1. Okay, .10, then .10. Then still I can exclude the 20.10. So I'm excluding the IP addresses that are assigned on the router so that they are not assigned anywhere. Okay?
Unique.
Not unique. I've already assigned them on the router. So the DHCP service, it should not give those IP addresses out. You get it? Should not give those IP addresses out, but they are already assigned somewhere. So I'll just go to IP DHCP pool. The pool name, I'll use VLAN 10, then network. Let me just copy this. Type. Network. Dot 0. Now the network, you have to give it a 0. You say that a 0, meaning that the other, it's a group of addresses. Then subnet mask, please, you don't need to be confused because we have another chapter about, it will be chapter 7, I think. 255, 255, then dot, 255 again, then dot 0. Where have I gone? Spelling. Spelling. Network. Okay. Then we need the default gateway. Now the default gateway, it's the IP address that is going, the default router, it's the IP address that is going to be assigned on the router in the space of default gateway. And that IP address, there are those IP addresses that we've used on the router. In other words, those ones that we have excluded, but the ones that are assigned on the sub-interfaces on the router. So we have a 10 dot, was for this, a 10 dot 10. Yeah, so that is it. I can actually again manipulate this IPDHCP pool VLAN 20 because I have two VLANs, and then the network, I will manipulate this, give it 20, see this, and then lastly the default router, still I'll manipulate this, put a 20. Okay, so here you see this link here, it has to be trunked because it's going to be dealing with traffic from different VLANs. So I will access this switch where this cable is connected. It's port what? Port 1, isn't it?
Can we use JJB?
Sorry?
Switch.
Sorry?
Use JJB port.
Which one?
Use and switch
Hmm.
JJB port.
I'm not getting that stated, the last statement. No, I'm can help me.
Yes, also, can we use a gigabit?
Or gigabit. Yes, you can use gigabit. There's no problem because this is an intelligent device that even if maybe the other side it's fast Ethernet, this the other side, and then this side it's gigabit Ethernet. So, and they have to be actually in dynamic mode. The negotiation option, that feature, it has to be there so that the speed is negotiated. That the other side, if it's 100 and this side it's 1,000, then they will negotiate for the speed, and then it will be just 1 over 1,000, it will adjust 100 to switch or to be compatible with the other side end. So here our port, it's port 1, isn't it? So it's interface, then first 0 slash 1, and then switch port mode trunk, like that. So we have trunked our port. See now, it's again synchronizing with the other port. Synchronizing with the other port. So I don't need to do the pings. If I'm able to pick the IP address from the router, remember I've enabled the service on the router. If I come to any computer here and it is able to pick the IP address from the router, then it means that my network is working properly. Okay? Because there is no way it can pick the IP address from the router when there is something that is lacking. Okay? So it's time, it has synchronized, it's time now. Today, instead of assigning IP address statically, manually here, let me use the DHCP and see whether it will pick the IP address. What are you seeing? Is there an IP address? It is here. If you want to know that there is a problem, in case we're saying that there is a problem, let me just switch this. I will remove this cable here, put it in a port that is not trunked, which is a 2. I'll use a 2 here. Okay? And then we test. So there are so many ways of proving that your network is working. So not all the time that you have to do the ping, see? Okay?
So is the default pin
Yeah. Next time when we meet, then it will be interview. So interview routing using layer 3. Somebody first. Practice, please. Practice, please. It's not going to make sense when you're picking the circuit. You have actually, sometimes I think that they are not injection. So it's not really what injection, or we take those injection. So this, obviously the tablets. The moment you follow this, maybe these grounds, you'll be an expert in this way. But we are not ready. The only mechanism is to sit down like this one here, the whole day, trying to lift the same. Because if you try the whole day and you fail, tomorrow you will come and consult your friend, and your friend will tell you, no, no. That will be the only connection. And then the rest you don't see. I think you don't see. Then it's going to come anytime. Come and give you the I'm not going to sit there with you, please do this, do this. Once you immediately from here, I see you in the testing center. Okay? The previous year now, I have my fellow instructor from my class. That was March intake last year. Now he's an instructor teaching at the university. Your age, but after doing you are smart like how if you don't have the certification, you will not present the paper and then you want to see this pass. If you can defend it, how to get it? But practice. Stopping here unless if there are questions. Then this is Inter-VLAN